Hi, this is Marlene. I'm so glad you could join me today. We're going to be going over how to do kefir milk. I will give you tips, tricks, and let you know the pitfalls, things that I've done through the years that haven't worked, and the last few years found a solid system that works really well. Super easy, really quick, and that's what I'm after. We have busy lives, and so I've always wanted to try to find something that was quick, easy, and nearly 100% successful every time, which we pay a lot of money for our food, so I think that's kind of important, don't you? So you're viewing this, I assume, either because you're interested in starting to do kefir milk and wonder how do you do that, how do you make it, or I have sent you some, or you might have received from a friend or someone through the mail, or I've shared those with you, and I want to go through with you how to get those to wake up and make the kefir. And I'll show you my system, what I've done that works, and please let me know below if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer those or help you in any way. So anyway, there are, if you've gotten the kefir grains by mail, everyone sends them a little differently. I tend to send them in a Ziploc bag, and I always will put the grains. They look like cottage cheese. It's kind of funny they call it grains, but they look like cottage cheese. I've always put a little bit of the old kefir, and I add some new milk to it. And so it gives them something to feed on in transit while they're getting to you. Or if I've given them to you, they might be coming in a jar. In the jar, I do the same thing. Put the grains, a little teeny bit of the kefir they were just in, and then I add a little bit of milk, so it gives them something to feed on. And so we'll go through how to wake them up, and we'll get going with that. One more thing I wanted to mention was a great resource that I often mention to folks. Let's see if you can see this. It is Donna Swank's Cultured Food for Health. This is her second book, and it frankly I think is better than the first book. It goes through in great detail how to make the kefir, how to do kombucha, and how to do fermented vegetables. And in the fermented world, that is called the trilogy. We need to consume all three in our diet, and she talks about how to incorporate that, how to do, you know, easy ways. She's got really super creative recipes, and her foods taste really good. She's very, very creative, very much a foodie, so that really appealed to me. So that's a good resource for you to follow. One thing I would tell you is when you get the kefir grains in her book, if you get her book or you're reading it, I don't want there to be any confusion, she will recommend that you, let me find it here, that you use 1 tablespoon of the grains to 1 quart of milk. That would be this guy right here. And I frankly have found more success, and anyone I have worked with or given the grains to, I always recommend two tablespoons per quart. So if you factor that in, that would be like, what, 8 tablespoons for a gallon, or 4 for half gallon. And frankly, as I make the kefir, they keep growing and proliferating. And frankly, I just tend to put them all back in the next batch. However, this last season, I had about 2 cups. This is a 16-ounce canning jar, and I had this thing full of kefir grains. And so if I get too many, then I'll put, you know, let's say I had 2 cups, I'll put like 1 cup or so in my milk. And just because I do, it doesn't matter if you add more, you know, you have more than your 8 tablespoons or 2 tablespoons. And then I just simply add some milk to it. Let's say the grains are right to here. I just simply add milk to it, you know, maybe 1 inch above, and then put them in the fridge and let them just hang out for a week or 2 till I'm ready to use them again. And if those are some that are extras, then I just simply, if I'm not using it in 2 weeks, I just strain it out and then put the grains back in here and add fresh milk. And you can use that kefired milk. But they just need to have some food. They're hungry little critters, and they provide so much goodness for us. We need to keep them healthy, so we need to keep feeding them milk. It's not something that takes much time. Maybe every couple weeks, if they're sitting in the fridge, you need to do that. It's really pretty quick, and you'll see that as I show you. So I am the other thing is I'm a raw milk drinker, and I want to just, I understand that making the milk kefir can work with almost any type of milk. It's not recommended for ultra pasteurized. And here in the Pacific Northwest, in my area, we can only get from a grocery store ultra pasteurized milk. and that means it's like dead beyond belief. And so it doesn't tend to work well. I've known people that have used it and say it turned out okay, but I wouldn't recommend it. There's really not a lot of nutrients in it by that point because they've heated it so high, they've killed anything that's good in it. So for me, if I am in a pinch and I'm without my raw milk, and so I then run to a local PCC market, and they have a milk that is pasteurized. It's low temp pasteurized, and it's non-homogenized. That means, of course, the cream is at the top and you got the milk on the bottom, and that is the next best thing to raw milk. And so that's usually what I use. And so that would be my recommendation if you're in a pinch. If you have access to raw milk, this is what you ought to use. It's good stuff, good stuff. This is where I get mine. Here in the Pacific Northwest, they have drop points all over the place, and so you can order it and go pick it up every week somewhere. The other little tip I want to tell you is I generally buy about 6 of these once a month or every 3 weeks or so, 6 half gallons, and I freeze them until I need it. Then I thaw this. It just thawed out yesterday, and I just let it sit in a container on my counter, and it takes like 8 to 10 hours to pretty much thaw out. It isn't even all the way thawed out. So I'll leave it during the day while I'm at work, come home, put it in the fridge, and it's still really cold, and there could be even a chunk of ice in there still, or milk that's not thawed out. So, all right, let's get to making kefir. I'm gonna just rearrange the camera here and so that you can see better my work area and what it is that I'm doing here. What I have here is basically the tools that I will need. Let me turn on the light. The tools that you'll need. You need to have a strainer. This is a strainer that I don't use it just for kefir, I use it for everything. But the key with kefir is no aluminum. You want to either have a plastic strainer or stainless steel only. You can't use aluminum. It just doesn't, it's not advised. I'll let you research that if you want to. And then I have a bowl, obviously, and what I've learned is it's great to have a bowl that covers up, that comes up to above where those holes are right here, because sometimes when I'm dumping out like a big half gallon of kefir in here, if it goes through these higher holes and it's sitting in a bowl like this, you can see that it would the kefir would drain out over the side. Bad mess. So I've always just, this bowl and this strainer always work well together, and that's what I've always used. And then I need a wooden spoon. And then I also have, in these I have two jars of kefir which have been sitting for a couple days, been 2 days. The other thing that I'll mention too is that second ferment. You may have heard or read about it. First ferment is just as is, fermenting the kefir this way. In Donna Swank's book, she recommends that you only ferment these for milk kefir for 24 hours, and then if you want to add some flavoring or a little twist that's kind of fun, you second ferment it. So that means that the first 24 hours you take this and strain it out, which I will show you, and then you have just the kefired milk here, the grains here, right? You take that milk that you've strained, put it in a jar, and add like fruit. You can add, strawberries, blueberries, orange slices, and she goes through there in her book and tells you how much time to second ferment them. And I think it's like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Personally, I have never second fermented because my routine habit that works well and that I've always used is I always just ferment for 48 hours. Any longer than that, then the nutrients tend to decrease. The advantage of second ferment or going 48 hours is you get the highest amount of vitamin B and a bunch of other good stuff that is in this that is greater at 48 hours than it is at one day. When you're first doing it, you might want to just go 24 hours so that you can get used to the taste. It is a little tart, and if you're not a tart person, don't like that kind of thing, then start with just 24 hours and then go to 48 if you can, or try some of her ways of second fermenting, which are cool. I think I might venture on that here soon. Just give it a try. It sounds fun. With the summer fruit coming on, that would be fun. So what I want to share with you is a couple things. I started to shake this up and then I was like, uh-oh, don't do that. You can see here, you can see where the cream is on the top and the milk is on the bottom. and let me see if I can turn it around anywhere. You can kind of see that it's starting to separate here. Before I accidentally shook it, you could see that more, and that was clear. And that just means that it's separating into whey, and if left till tomorrow, this would probably be mostly all clear. Now that's not a bad thing. That just happens in the fermentation process, and as it's sitting on your counter, or even if you leave it sitting a long time in the fridge after it's made, it will do that. And all you simply do is shake it up, and then it blends it, and it's really, really creamy. One thing I wanted to show you, see if we can get a good look on the camera, is how thick this is. After 2 days, and it's a little bit thinner when you shake it up, so we'll shake it up. That's just kind of how I like to do it. Some people will just pop the lid and dump it in there. I just like to shake it, it's my habit. But one thing I wanted to mention, because it is fermented, a lot of times the way I really like these jars that are the flip top, I have tried plain old canning jars, whether it's quart or whatever. I've used these. I've tried it with the towel over the top and a rubber band. Doesn't work very well. Was looking for a way to get 100% results. So you just kind of research, try things, and find what works for you. And that did not work well at all. Didn't get consistent results. So then I tried just a regular metal canning lid and ring, and then it would tend to corrode a little bit. That's just the kefir will do that to the lid, and with that type of metal. And so again, that's a reason we don't want to use anything but stainless steel or plastic or wood. And so then I graduated to using these lids. Well, whoops, that was better, but it still wasn't a consistent result. It wasn't sealing, and I was wanting it to have more depth of flavor. And so then I started following some blog threads years ago, and in that there was showing some science with fermentation, which included kefir milk, and found that these type of jars with the rubber rim or seal actually work the best, because no bacteria can get in from the outside, and when it is starting the fermentation process, even with your milk, you will find it will the gas can builds up, and it will come out through the seal. It doesn't ooze down the side, doesn't do any of that. You won't hear any hissing. If you were fermenting vegetables, that would be different. Someday we'll go through and do a video for that, but for now, this I found works the best, and I get 100% consistent results. So, okay, so let's get to it. So anyway, I've shaken my milk, and if you listen carefully, you will find that it probably will hear a hiss or a pop. Oh, that one we didn't hear much from. It doesn't mean anything's wrong, just sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. And I always will take off my lid, clean this out, and then I'll pour my half gallon in here and get out all the goodness. You'll find a lot will stick to the side, especially the cream, and there will also be little bits of the grain, at least in my experience, that seem to be at the bottom. And so I just work hard to get that out, and I don't, not for sake of the video, I'm not going to do it as thoroughly as I do now. So what you're going to see is, gosh, I don't know how well you can see this. Let me turn the light off and see if it's a little bit better. So in this, I think you can see some of the grains in here. It looks like a bunch of cottage cheese in the bowl. And so what I'm going to do, I'll turn the light back on. What I'm going to do is I just simply sit here. I'll lift this up. I just simply go like this. Just move it back and forth as it gets through the strainer. And you can see if you lift it up that you've got all this great kefir that is at the bottom. And so that is, and then what I'm left with are a lot of these grains, which you can kind of see are kind of cottage cheesy like that. And because I am sending a bunch to some friends, I am going to measure out 1/2 to 1 cup. We'll see how much I have. I'll probably just be able to send about 1/2 cup which is maybe a little more than that, which is enough for a half gallon. And then they grow pretty rapidly. Okay, and then I usually, if I have a lot of extra grains, I'll put them in the jar. But to start my next batch, I just simply will put the grains in the jar and then put the milk, fresh milk in there. So with this milk that I have in the bowl, let me just put the strainer, I just try to wipe off the bottom as much as I can because it's kind of messy. Set it on a paper towel, and now I have 2 canning jars that I will use here to put this thick goodness in. And remember, I have one more jar to do too of kefir here, so it will fill up this jar and then some. So there we go. Now I'm ready, and I'll just put, you know, one of these lids on, and this goes in the fridge. It's good to go. And again, it will separate most likely, not always, even in the fridge. And so you just shake it up before you use it. And so also, once it's kefired, there pretty much is no expiration. Research it out yourself, but you can use this for months and months ahead, months and months. And so I've known people to make a gallon at a time, and then they use it all month long, especially if they're single or not using it that much. Make a gallon at a time and then put it in the fridge, and you've got it for a whole month. So pretty cool. So here we go with the second one. Going to put the strainer in the bowl. Let's see if this one will make a hiss or a pop. Whoa, yes, it did. Yeah, sometimes it happens. Usually it's not that explosive, but that made for a lot of fun. So again, I'll go back and clean out these jars and make sure I get all with a rubber scraper. I'm gonna pour all of this in here. You can see some of the grains plopping out. And again, I always will go through, I always want to look and see. A lot of times there's some little bits of baby grains stuck to the bottom or around the side. Okay. All right, we'll call that good for now. Okay, so again, all I'm doing is just simply pushing these grains around the bowl. That's it. Until they're pretty much looking like cottage cheese. There isn't a lot of milk in the top, and you can see what these look like. And there we go. And so because I'm going to send some friends these in the mail, I want to make sure that I have a good healthy half cup. And then all the rest of these grains, because there's more than a half cup here, will go in my new jar, in the fresh jar. Again, like I said, you don't need to use a new jar each time. It's your preference. You can just reuse one of the other ones that it was in. So I always will make sure and clean off the bottom because I want to get as much goodness as I can. And then this milk kefir will go into canning jars. So it's much thicker than the raw milk that we started with. And so I'll set that aside and do that later. Then here is my raw milk. And typically what I do is I just shake it up really good and then pour it back in here. Sometimes I get all of it in there and sometimes I don't. Oh, I'm going to. Depends how many grains I have, how full they are. So then all I do is you can either take a spatula, I stir it like that, or if you're the liking to shake it, you can just shake it. All I want to do is just blend them together throughout the milk, and then I just let it sit. That's it. It's done. It's done. finished as far as prepping it to start kefiring. So now I just let it sit here in the kitchen on my cutting board and for 48 hours. That's my routine. So so let me know if you have any questions at all. I'm happy to answer, do my best to answer any questions that you may have. Yeah, I think the lighting is okay, maybe. So again, I recommend as a reference this book, Donna Swank, Cultured Food for Health. Her newest book is really great at step-by-step instructions, a lot better than her first book. So it's a great tool. Ask me questions, and I think we've covered it. If I haven't, let me know. If you have any questions, I'm happy to help. All right, thanks for joining me today. It was really fun to share this with you. I'm excited that you get to start on your new kefir adventure. So anyway, have a great day.